was born in Bethlehem, to King David's reign, as he takes over the mantle of leadership from King Saul. David's rise to power not only catches our attention because of his defeat over the mighty giant Goliath, but also we consider how that he is victorious and how that the Lord blesses him. But David is not forgetful of those who have shown kindness to him. Jonathan was David's very special friend, and there was a kinship between the two that went very deep, and his friend is now gone, as is Saul, his father. But David remembers that friendship, that kindness that was shown to him. Jonathan knew that David would be the next king, although Jonathan was the rightful heir to that title and to that position. And we read in 2 Samuel chapter 9, David saying, "Is there not yet any one left from the house of Saul, that I may show him kindness for Jonathan's sake?" Now there was a servant of the house of Saul whose name was Ziba. And they called him to David, and the king said to him, "Are you Ziba?" And he answered, "I am your servant." The king said, "Is there not yet anyone of the house of Saul to whom I may show the kindness of God?" And Ziba said to the king, "There is still a son of Jonathan, who is crippled in both his feet." And the king said to him, "Where is he?" And we are introduced to the beautiful story of the man Mephibosheth, the man who was lame in his feet, but yet brought into the king's presence. Here is a portrait of God's grace, a picture of what God does for each and every one of us. True, we could look and here say, well, here is a lovely story. Here is a beautiful account from 1,000 years BC. But there is much more for us here. This is a picture of how that God reaches out to us. You see, sin has marred each and every one of us, and sin cripples each one who it touches. And the Bible tells us in Romans that all of us have sinned and all of us have fallen short of the grace and the glory of God. So each and every one of us have crippled feet. Every one of us have been marked, and every one of us are just like Mephibosheth. And yet the King of all glory, not just King David, but the King of heaven, he would bid us to come to him. And he would say, "Would you come to me? Would you come into my very presence?" See what takes place here as we consider further. David sends and brought Mephibosheth from the house of Machir, the son of Amiel from Lo-debar. Mephibosheth, the son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, came to David and fell on his face and prostrated himself. And David said, "Mephibosheth." And he said, "Here is your servant." David said to him, "Do not fear, for I will surely show kindness to you for the sake of your father Jonathan, and will restore to you all the land that was your grandfather, and you shall eat at my table regularly." You see, there was a kinship, there was a delight on the part of the king for someone who was very near and dear to him. Here we have in heaven's glory God the Father reaching out to each and every one of us and saying, "I want to show you kindness for the sake of my Son, Jesus Christ, who is near and dear to me." So it was back in David's time. He reaches out and he says, "Mephibosheth, you are just like all of the rest here in Israel, except for one thing. You were the son of Jonathan. You were near to him. And so for Jonathan's sake, I reach out to you." So it is with each and every one of us. God the Father reaches out to us. And it says, because of what Jesus did on Calvary's cross, for his sake, I reach out to you in grace and in mercy, in loving kindness, that you might come into my very presence, that you might eat at my table. Mephibosheth comes before the king, not all puffed up, but he realizes who he is. He realizes that he is as good as a dead man, that perhaps the king was calling him to slay him. because Saul had shown absolutely no kindness to David personally. Perhaps David was now going to exact revenge upon this last one living from Saul's household. But no, David says, do not fear. So it is with each and every one of us who are called into God's presence. We might, in the pangs of our guilty conscience, say, I am a dead man. Surely vengeance is going to be exacted upon me, but it is not so. Jesus Christ died upon the cross that we might know God's forgiveness. And so we are bidden to come, and we are bid to come without fear and without terror, because the old debt has been canceled. It has been wiped out through the work of Jesus Christ. Oh, would you come into the very presence of the King today, as Mephibosheth does, and bow before the King of glory. But would you also hear these words, I will show you kindness. I will show you kindness. Once again, Mephibosheth gives a response, and he says, not, oh, what a great person I am. You're right to treat me in this way. No, he says, what is your servant? As he prostrates himself further, he says, what is your servant that you should regard a dead dog like me? Now, it's not correct, so-called, in our world to deprecate ourselves. But here, Mephibosheth, he understood what was really taking place. It's good for each and every one of us to understand how we stand before the King of Glory, that we don't have anything to impress him with. There's nothing that we can amaze him with. We simply come absolutely undone, as cripples, as lepers, as those who are unclean, as those who have nothing to offer. It's simply because of his grace that we come. And so here is a beautiful portrait of grace. Here is God at work, reaching out, in the picture that we have here of David reaching out to Mephibosheth. No power, no influence, part of that which had been swept away, but God was at work. Mephibosheth is told that he will receive blessing and that he will eat daily in the king's presence. At the conclusion of the chapter we read, so Mephibosheth lived in Jerusalem, in the king's presence, in the king's city. High and holy privilege it was. And he ate at the king's table regularly, though he was lame in his feet. Oh, friend, would you receive of God's grace? Mephibosheth, he could have said, as unimaginable as it would be, I don't want your kindness. I don't want to have anything to do with you. You are not my kin. But Mephibosheth, he said, why should I receive such kindness? So many people in our world today, they say, I don't want to have anything to do with God. I don't want to have anything to do with Jesus Christ. I don't want to have anything to do with his cross. But would you see that in Mephibosheth is a picture of you and a picture of me, needing God's grace? Would you accept it? Would you call out to him and would you say, Lord, I am absolutely undone. I receive of your goodness and of your forgiveness. Receive that today and know life in his name.
Next Sunday at this same time on this same station. Until then, Faith to Live By prays that the peace of God will fill your heart and that the joy of the Lord will be your strength. Pastor Barber would love to hear from you. The mailing address is Faith to Live By, Box 426, Winnipeg, Manitoba, R3C 2H6.